click below to watch the original Sins video.
In order for you to know why the Avengers are here, you needed to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I have neither the time nor the patience to sit through so I can understand the movie.
Yes, you could have watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to find out this information, or alternatively, you could just watch the fucking movie and you'll be able to see that the characters explain what's going on. I'm now realizing that Cinemasins is basically just the YouTube equivalent of watching a movie with someone who keeps asking questions like, who's that? What's going on? Why are they fighting? I'm confused. I don't know, maybe if you fucking shut up and watch the movie, then we will find out.
Also, a movie makes me do research so that I can figure out Agent Coulson is behind this Avengers op, which is confusing because he died in the last Avengers movie. Or did he?
Again, you did not have to do any research for this. That is completely unnecessary to enjoying or even understanding this movie. This scene just felt like a cheap way to reference the whole Coulson thing.
This quadrant is unsafe.
Something you Sokovians can totally understand in English.
Could Tony really not have programmed these drones to speak the language of the civilians they're interacting with? In the first Iron Man movie, he had tech that could automatically translate footage from a poorly recorded video, so I'm pretty sure he could figure out how to do this, especially since the Iron Legion is basically completely useless without it.
Yay! Indeed, yay! And all you have to do is randomly push some part of the wall and it opens.
In the clip right before this one, Tony had Jarvis scan the room and he spotted the hidden entrance here.
Also, a girl who has been experimented on and held captive decides to defend those who experimented on her and held her captive.
Wanda was not held captive. She and Pietro volunteered for the experiments willingly. Future vision of Steve's shield being broken is included solely for the purpose of putting it in the trailer to make this movie look more serious than it actually is. Yes, I am still salty about this.
Does anyone else find it unnerving that these two played husband and wife the last time we saw them? Now they're twins? That's kind of creepy, right?
This scene basically just boils down to, hey, these two actors appeared in a completely unrelated movie where their characters have a different relationship than they do in this one.
You've been after this thing since S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsed.
But why? Wasn't Loki's scepter on top of the Stark Tower at the end of the last movie? Did none of you go and get it? I don't watch your damn TV show, so why can't you at least explain how the f***ing scepter got into the wrong hands again for us movie fans, huh?
You didn't need to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to figure this out. The scepter was recovered by S.H.I.E.L.D., which the Avengers thought were on their side until it was revealed that they had been infiltrated by Hydra in the Winter Soldier, so it makes sense that when Hydra was exposed and S.H.I.E.L.D. disbanded after that movie, some members of Hydra would have fled with anything valuable they had, including the scepter. Hence the beginning of this movie once the Avengers were able to track it down.
He's fast and she's weird.
Movie thinks the throwaway punchline will make me forget it does nothing to explain Scarlet Witch's abilities, but movie is wrong.
There is a very detailed explanation of how Wanda's abilities work in this exact scene right before the clip you played.
Their abilities?
He's got increased metabolism and improved thermal homeostasis.
Her thing is neuroelectric interfacing, telekinesis, mental manipulation.
He's fast and she's weird.
One of this movie's biggest flaws is having Tony Stark behaving as though he can create artificial intelligence without it instantly going rogue against humanity. So, Tony has never seen Terminator? Or The Matrix?
Tony Stark literally has already made artificial intelligence. Or did you forget about the existence of Jarvis? This scene basically just boils down to, Tony thinks that he can do something that he's already done.
Find a place in Brooklyn yet?
I don't think I can afford a place in Brooklyn.
Wait, you're a celebrity working in a highly funded secret government agency, and you can't afford a place in Brooklyn? Are they paying you in 1940s money?
Well, Steve is no longer working for S.H.I.E.L.D. because S.H.I.E.L.D. just doesn't even exist anymore. I'm starting to think that Jeremy straight up just didn't even watch Winter Soldier. Yes, I know that he made a video about it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he actually knows anything about what actually happened in it. Although, this scene does raise the question of why Steve can't just ask Tony to pay for an apartment for him if he wanted to. I know that Falcon and the Winter Soldier hints that the Avengers don't get paid, and sure, it does make sense that they don't have a salary, but surely if they just asked Tony for enough money to buy a place to live, then he'd say yes, right? He definitely has enough money to spare. The dude's a fucking billionaire.
Hey, just what this story needed. A romantic angle involving Romanoff and Bruce Banner. The plot thickens?
I honestly more or less agree with this sin. I don't necessarily think that this relationship is horrible. They have pretty decent chemistry, but it does feel kind of forced and doesn't really add much to the movie. But the real reason why I included this in is because it's going to be relevant again later.
Movie gets a laugh out of Banner trying to lift Thor's hammer, but dodges geek orgasm question of what would happen if Banner were in full-on Hulk mode while trying to lift it.
Maybe that's because the first movie already answered that question. Do you not remember the scene of the Hulk trying and failing to lift the hammer? But even if that scene didn't exist, in what world would the answer to that question be anything but, he can't fucking lift it? Lifting the hammer has nothing to do with strength, it has to do with worthiness. You really think that the Hulk would be considered worthy, especially when Banner isn't?
And? Widow?
Oh, no, that's not a question I need answered.
Thank God. My sexual fantasies would have taken a huge hit if she did.
The only reason this would be considered a sin would be if Jeremy's sexual fantasies involved Black Widow specifically wielding Thor's hammer, which... Damn, dude, what do you want her to do to you with that hammer?
Ultron cleared out.
Use the internet as an escape hatch.
He used the what to what now?
Jeremy apparently doesn't know what the internet is. Seriously, I know there's a lot of technobabble in these movies, but this line is fairly self-explanatory.
You may have forgotten during that confusing battle that Rhodes was hit with Ultron's pulse bolt, crashed through a window, and fell about 50 feet into a metal walkway down below. But sure, he's just got an ouchie on his shoulder.
50 feet? Really? That is not 50 feet. 50 feet is like the size of a small skyscraper. If that was 50 feet, then he would be dead right about now. This is like 10 feet at most.
It makes a hole in the floor. It's big.
Our parents go in.
Wait, so Magneto went out like a bitch in this timeline?
It feels worth pointing out that Magneto was never the one who actually raised the twins in any continuity, not in the comics or the X-Men movies, so the parents that died here are probably just the ones who adopted them and not Magneto. But also, it is really disrespectful to describe someone who died in a military bombing as going out like a bitch.
Does Thor see Quicksilver? Is that why he throws the hammer here? Also, the one guy with superpowers who clearly doesn't need any help decides, yeah, I need Thor's hammer. Let's do this.
Jeremy really just said the one guy with superpowers in an Avengers movie.
Comic book hero movie splices frames from center stage into the final print.
This sin is because the superhero movie had the absolute gall to include ballet dancers. Also, wow, talking into the microphone like this could make some really hot ASMR. Okay, that's enough of that.
Are you ready for our dance?
Well, this is a fun cameo, but why is Scarlet Witch giving the Avengers happy memories?
Jeremy says happy memories even when none of those words actually apply in this scenario. What Steve sees kind of appears happy, but they aren't memories, and it's all about the life that he never got to live because he ended up being frozen in the ice. And Thor's vision wasn't happy or a memory. He saw a bunch of dead Asgardians with Heimdall blaming him for it. And what Black Widow saw was indeed a memory, but it certainly wasn't happy. She got flashbacks to being abused at her assassin school.
I want the big one.
Honestly, I'm just proud of Jeremy for not making a sex joke here.
So, Tony has a suit that helps him defeat Hulk, the most undefeatable guy in all of Marvel lore, but somehow doesn't deem that superior suit worthy of wearing during normal Ultron warfare. Why isn't the Hulkbuster armor the default armor?
Just because the Hulkbuster armor was specifically designed to fight the Hulk doesn't mean that it would be better in all other circumstances. It's a lot bigger and clunkier, which makes it significantly less maneuverable.
Hulkbuster armor is clearly badass, but if Black Widow can solve Hulk with a couple of arm touches and a hypno phrase, then why didn't everyone learn that?
The implication is very clearly that Black Widow can do that because she and the Hulk have a romantic connection, and I don't think that anyone beyond 13-year-olds on Wattpad would genuinely believe that he has anything like that with the other male Avengers.
Never mind these innocent people here, pay attention to the spectacle, damn it.
Okay, so I understand why Jeremy made this sin, but I still don't necessarily think that it works. Tony is clearly trying his best to minimize civilian casualties throughout this fight, to the point where he doesn't head for that under-construction building until after he's scanned it to make sure that nobody was in there. Unfortunately, there's only so much you can do when dealing with an out-of-control Hulk, so some damage is naturally going to happen. Basically, what I'm saying is that this isn't anything like the destruction in something like Man of Steel, which Jeremy goes on to compare this scene to in the very next scene. The whole thing about minimizing casualties is actually a recurring theme throughout this movie, with that being the reason why Tony created the Iron Legion in the first place, as well as being a major focus throughout the final battle. In my opinion, it was really effective and helped to lay the groundwork for Civil War, which this was a much bigger deal in. Jeremy tries to attribute a level of shallowness to this movie that I really don't think it deserves. In fact, when I rewatched this movie in preparation for this video, I felt that it had a lot more to offer than I remembered it having. You usually see people ranking this as the weakest Avengers movie, which there's certainly a debate to be had about, especially when you're talking about 4 great movies, but I think that it deserves a lot more credit than people typically give it. Although I probably shouldn't go too much further in depth for the sake of time, so if you want to see my general thoughts on this movie, then you can go check out my review of it on Letterboxd, which will be linked in the description. I'm pretty sure I remember there being a sin in here somewhere, so I'll just roll the dinger and move on.
Yeah, well, Fury helped me set this up when I joined.
And even though Captain America Winter Soldier established that Fury and all of S.H.I.E.L.D. were compromised, somehow this little farmer's paradise still went unnoticed. Pretty sweet, right?
Literally the next line right after this is Hawkeye saying that Fury kept his safe house off of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s files. Whether or not you buy that is up to you, but Jeremy seemingly completely disregards it. Some people have accused Cinemasins of straight up misrepresenting movies in order to make sins, and normally I try to give them the benefit of the doubt that they actually are just making genuine mistakes, but stuff like this and them cutting off the explanation about Wanda's powers earlier in this video kind of makes doing that really hard.
I saw something in that dream.
What dream?
I need answers.
To what?
I won't find him here.
Wait, what? I'm so confused.
What dream? What dream? I don't know, maybe it was the one that you were bitching about earlier. You probably wouldn't be as confused if you weren't apparently getting the guy from fucking Memento to write your sins videos for you.
Movie teases potentially contentious discussion between Rogers and Stark, but erroneously thinks we'd rather spend time with Hawkeye's marriage.
But they do end up showing us the conversation between Tony and Steve. You yourself end up playing it later in the video.
Yes, they're mind mess.
But why? Second Avengers film suddenly decides Hawkeye is somehow the moral center of this group of crime fighters, which is stupid, rushed, forced, and stupid.
You are completely at liberty to find this stupid if you want to, but I personally thought that this really worked and genuinely added to the story quite a bit. Jeremy's main complaint is that they didn't add this until the second movie with Hawkeye, but considering how everyone was complaining that he was boring in the first movie, they really needed to do something to add more to his character, and I think this was a great way to do that. It doesn't contradict anything that we already knew about him, and again, these are all just opinions, and you can disagree with me if you want, but if you're going to do that, then please actually back up why you think that, because Jeremy just sort of calls it stupid and rushed without explaining why he thinks that in any way.
You still think you're the only monster on the team?
Smart people know she's talking about being an efficient killer, not that she can't have babies. However, should we sin the fact that coming right on the heels of a revelation that she's sterile, this script was a little tone-deaf about that?
As bad as this video has been by Cinemasins standards, I actually do kind of agree with this point, so here's one sin-off.
Water of sight.
Remember when the individual movies got you excited about the Avengers? Now it's the Avengers' job to get you excited about individual movies, which in turn will preview the next ones. Coming soon, Marvel previews the movie.
You say that, but part of the fun of the MCU in these days was the fact that everything was connected. That's a large part of why Infinity War and Endgame were so great, when they were able to wrap everything up in a neat little bow. As long as all the movies are more or less able to stand up on their own merits, then there's not really too much to complain about. Although that's not like that's ever stopped Jeremy ever.
First off, these people are dead, knowing what we know about Captain America and his unbelievable strength.
Yeah, Cap's strong, but he's not too much heavier than a regular human. He's not gonna hurt anybody by falling backwards onto their car windshield.
I'm sending the package to you.
How do you want me to take it?
Well, me and everyone else who just thought of a sex joke is going to hell.
Hey, at least you're aware of it.
We're mad scientists. We're monsters, buddy. You've got to own it.
This is the speech one man of science gives another man of science to convince him to repeat a horribly failed previous experiment. Paging all real scientists. How pissed off does this make you?
I'm sure any real scientist will probably tell you that repeating a previously failed experiment and changing small aspects of it is a key component of science. Also, this is basically a completely different experiment than what they were trying to do the last time.
Sudden Thor is sudden.
Shots! Oh wait, wrong video.
Thor does some bull and gives birth to Vision. But I'm not sure I believe my eyes, because this is the same guy John Nash hallucinated in A Beautiful Mind.
This actor was in more than one movie, and that's a sin.
You'll never... Never what?
Wait, what? Cap can now somehow call his vibranium shield back to his arm via telepathy?
Cap has magnets implanted into both the shield and the arm of his suit that he can use to summon his shield right back to him. Did you not remember this moment from earlier in the movie?
Oh, see, if you never explain a hero's powers, like even a tiny bit, then you can get away with having them mind explode a bunch of enemies in the finale.
And if you completely ignore the very explicit explanation given for a character's powers, then you can get away with claiming that their powers aren't explained at all, except that you can't, and Jeremy is full of shit.
It's kind of amazing that when all this shit went down, Fury was able to find this in a matter of, I'm guessing, an hour, and was able to fly it over here just when the heroes needed it most.
And this is how you can tell that for all of Jeremy's bitching about this movie making him watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that he didn't actually watch any of it or do any research, because this is one of the few things that actually tied into the movie. Fury and Coulson had a secret project called the Theta Protocol, where they were fixing up this helicarrier to be used in emergencies.
Twins can always tell when their twin has been killed by a terrible screenwriter.
Wanda has telepathy, you dunce.
Every time Ultron dies in this movie, it's a bunch of nonsense. Isn't he still wandering around the internet?
Except if you actually bothered to watch the movie instead of doing whatever the fuck you were doing, you would have noticed that Vision had Ultron cut off from the internet earlier in the fight.
So that was the last Ultron, apparently, even though I still have my doubts about that. But what exactly made this the age of Ultron anyway? Aren't ages a period of many, many years?
I've heard a lot of people make this joke, and I think it's stupid every time. The Google definition of an age is a distinct period of history, with no specifications for how long it must be. Also, if you really wanted to complain about the title, it'd probably be better to point out how it's based off the name of a comic book series that it has absolutely nothing to do with, aside from just having Ultron in it. Although I definitely don't expect Jeremy to have been able to point this out, because he gives off the vibes of having never read any comics at any point in his life.
I have no choice. The Mind Stone is the fourth of the Infinity Stones to show up in the last few years. It's not a coincidence.
Okay, so let's break this down. Thor says that the Mind Stone was the fourth Infinity Stone to crop up in the last few years, and on the surface that does kind of make sense. By the time that this movie came out, the audience knew about 4 of them. There's 6, and the only 2 that hadn't been accounted for were the Time Stone and the Soul Stone, because we hadn't met Doctor Strange yet, and nobody had gone to Vormir. But here's the thing. Thor should only know about 3 of them. He's interacted with the space, reality, and now the Mind Stones, but he shouldn't know about the events of Guardians of the Galaxy, because when he meets them in Infinity War, he has no idea who they are. So I'm calling bullshit on this line.
I'll do it myself.
Finally,
Thanos says, "I'll do it myself" after the events of this movie, despite him not actually having anything to do with Ultron and his plan. In fact, Ultron was actually created by Tony to prevent Thanos from attacking Earth. Also, Thanos gets the Infinity Gauntlet here, even though Infinity War reveals that he wasn't able to actually get it until he attacked Nidavellir and forced the dwarves to make it for him. Also, I will never be able to watch this scene without thinking about how the LEGO Marvel Avengers game parodied it by making this chamber thing a washing machine.